Okay, imagine this. We're looking for an apartment, maybe somewhere super competitive, like San Francisco. You see a few places. Some are okay, some you kind of like. But then you get that feeling, how long do I keep looking? Is there something better out there? When do I just, jump on one? Most of us figure it's a balance, right? But what is that balance really? Well, the answer, and this might surprise you, comes from algorithms, and it's 37%. So for this deep dive, we're looking at how computer science, yeah, the stuff you think powers your phone or Google searches, actually gives us these incredibly precise, like provably optimal answers to really common, sometimes really tough human problems. It's almost like finding a cheat sheet for, I don't know, everything from dating to managing your email inbox or even sorting your socks.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, algorithms aren't just code. They're not only digital. I mean, think about it. Following a recipe, that's an algorithm. Knitting from a pattern, even. Way back, making a flint tool by following specific steps. Those are all algorithms. So what we're unpacking today are sources showing how these kind of hidden computational ideas can really guide our thinking, our decisions, our behavior. And often, yeah, they show that just going with your gut, maybe not the best path.
Okay, let's dig into that 37% rule for apartment hunting then. So, if you give yourself, say, a month to find a place, that means for the first, 11 days, roughly 37% of the month, you just look, no commitment, leave the checkbook at home. You're just getting a feel for the market, like setting your standard,
Yeah,
calibrating
that's
it.
the look phase, precisely. You're gathering data.
Right. And then, after those 11 days are up, the rule says you should be ready to sign the lease for the very first place you see that's better than anything you saw in that initial period.
Yes. Immediately commit. Deposit down everything.
But why 37%? Is it just like a good guess, a compromise number?
No, that's the amazing part. It's not a compromise at all. It is provably the optimal strategy. The mathematics show that this exact approach maximizes your probability of landing the single best option available within your time frame. It balances looking long enough to know what's good, but not so long that the best options pass you by.
Wow. Okay, so it's hardcore math saying set a standard, then act decisively.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. Where else does this idea, this optimal stopping, show up?
Oh, it's everywhere once you start looking for it. Dating is a classic example. Mathematically, it's often called the secretary problem. It's basically the science behind serial monogamy, if you will. There was even a professor, Michael Trick, who apparently used this very logic in his own search for a wife.
No way. Did it work?
The story goes, yes. And historically, think about Johannes Kepler, the astronomer. He went through this whole documented, agonizing process. Choosing his second wife considered something like 11 candidates. It perfectly illustrates the dilemma. And interestingly, if you tweak the rules slightly, say, you can go back to someone you previously rejected.
Oh, like if you get a second chance.
Exactly. If second chances are allowed, the success rate for picking the absolute best option jumps significantly, up to around 61%.
That's a huge difference. Okay, so dating. What about selling a house? Or finding a job?
Same principle applies.
Yeah.
Look for a certain period, set your baseline, then take the first offer that beats it. But there's a fascinating twist you mentioned earlier, right? The sources highlight this. Even if you know an earlier offer is still available.
Yeah, even if it's guaranteed to be on the table.
The optimal strategy says never go back. Don't take it.
That just feels so wrong. Like, why not keep the safe option in your back pocket?
Because the time and effort you spent looking after rejecting that offer, that's a sunk cost. The algorithm is purely forward-looking. Going back means you essentially wasted the resources you spent continuing the search. So the advice is, don't compromise based on past options, don't second-guess your decision to keep looking, and absolutely don't look back. Focus forward.
Cold, hard computational logic. Okay. And you mentioned parking. Even finding a parking spot fits this.
It does. Think about driving down a really long street looking for a spot near your destination. The optimal approach isn't to grab the first spot you see miles away. It's to drive a certain distance past your destination.
Past it.
Well, or rather a certain distance from it, assessing the situation. Then you take the first available spot you encounter after that assessment point. And how far that point is depends on how full the street is. Like if it's a super busy city, 99% full. The math suggests you should aim to take the first spot you find, starting almost a quarter-mile away, maybe 70 parking spaces out.
70 spots. Most people would have given up way before then.
Exactly. It shows how algorithms quantify that time cost. The frustration of searching, which makes us humans often stop way too early, settling for a worse spot just to end the search.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might applying a clear numerical strategy like this change some of your own big decisions? or even just finding parking.
Ah,
Definitely food for thought beyond just relying on gut feelings.
mm.
Okay, so optimal stopping is one big idea. But what about that constant tension we all feel? Should I try that new restaurant? Or just go to my favorite reliable place? Should I explore new music? Or stick with the bands I know I love? Does computer science have anything to say about that explore versus exploit thing?
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge area. It's called the explore-exploit trade-off, and it's fundamental. The classic analogy is the multi-armed bandit problem.
Huh.
Imagine you walk into a casino.
Okay, lots of slot machines, the bandits.
Right. Each one has a different hidden payout rate. You don't know which is best. So you have to spend some pulls just trying different machines to figure out their odds. That's exploration.
Hmm,
But you also want to spend most of your money on the machine that seems to be paying out the best based on what you've learned. It's exploitation.
got it. And it's tricky because you might get lucky on a bad machine early on or unlucky on a good one. So it's not just about the raw numbers you've seen so far.
Precisely. It's about uncertainty, too. Like you have one machine you played 15 times, it paid out 9 times, that's a 60% win rate. Seems good. Then another machine, you only played it twice, and it paid out once 50%. Which one do you play next? The 60% one seems better based on expected value.
But you have way less data on the 50% one. It could actually be much better, you just don't know yet.
Exactly. Those two polls aren't enough information. You might need to explore the second machine a bit more. And this whole framework gives us really powerful insights into how our own life strategies should probably change over time, as we age, for instance. Well, think about it. When you're young, you have a long future ahead of you. Lots of time to benefit from new discoveries. So the value of exploration is really high. Trying new things, learning new skills, meeting new people, it pays off in the long run. But as you get older, your time horizon shrinks. There are fewer opportunities left to actually enjoy the fruits of exploration.
So the balance shifts towards exploitation, sticking with the things you already know you like.
Generally, yes. Data scientist Chris Stucchio made this point really clearly. He said when he moves to a new city, he tries tons of restaurants, exploring. But when he knows he's about to leave a city, he just goes back to his established favorites, exploiting. It suggests that, maybe counterintuitively, life should get better as you get older, in a sense. Because early on, you trade some immediate pleasure for knowledge. Later, you get to cash in that knowledge and enjoy the best things you've found.
That's a really optimistic way to look at aging, actually. Trading short-term fun for long-term payoff. But this explore-exploit thing, it sounds like it could apply to more serious stuff, too, like ethical questions.
Definitely. Medical clinical trials are a perfect and often quite difficult example. You have a new potential treatment. How much do you explore by giving it to patients, potentially withholding the current best treatment, just to learn if the new one is better for future patients? Versus how much do you exploit the existing best treatment for the patients you have right now? There's a famous study, the ECMO study on life support for infants, that used an adaptive trial design, more explore-exploit than a traditional randomized trial. And it caused a huge debate in the medical community about the ethics of learning versus treating. It really highlights that tension.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. So it makes you reflect. Are you exploring enough in your own life? Or are you maybe stuck in a comfortable rut, a local maximum, just doing the same routines? And how does your age, your own time horizon, influence that personal balance? Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about mess. Piles of paper, cluttered desks, unsorted socks. We usually think sorting this stuff is just about being neat, right? Tidy equals good. But computer science actually has ways to measure the efficiency of sorting using something called Big O notation. Can you break that down? It sounds technical.
It sounds technical, but the concept is pretty straightforward. Big O notation just describes how the effort required for a task scales up as the size of the task increases. So O1, that's constant time. The effort is the same no matter how big the job. Like finding the first page in a book. Always the same effort.
Okay, easy.
Then ON, linear time. Effort grows directly with size, like reading every page in that book. Double the pages, double the reading time.
Makes sense.
Then you get things like ON2, quadratic time. Effort grows much faster with the square of the size. Think about having everyone in a room shake hands with everyone else. Add more people, the number of handshakes explodes. That's like some simple but slow sorting methods like bubble sort.
Right, that gets out of hand quickly.
And then there are more clever methods like ON log n. This is much more efficient for large tasks. Think of algorithms like merge sort. It's kind of like how they run a big tournament like March Madness. They don't have every team play every other team. They break it down into rounds, efficiently narrowing the field.
The bracket analogy. Okay, I get that. So sorting takes effort, described by Big O. And the
Hmm.
reason we sort is to make searching easier later, right? It's a trade-off. Spend effort now to save effort later.
Exactly. You sort preemptively to reduce future search costs. But here's the kicker, the surprising insight from the sources we looked at.
Yeah.
Often the optimal strategy is actually to err on the side of messiness.
Wait, what? Be messier. My mom would definitely not approve. Why is that better?
Laughs. Well, think about organizing your email into complex folders or meticulously alphabetizing your home bookshelf. It feels productive. But some studies suggest for many people it's actually kind of a waste of time. Unless you need to find very specific old things very often, the time spent meticulously filing everything might outweigh the time you'd occasionally spend just searching for something later.
So the cost of perfect organization outweighs the benefit if you don't search that often?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this connects directly to a really core computer science idea, caching.
Caching, like web caching. How does that relate to my messy desk?
It's the same fundamental principle. Computers have different levels of memory. Really fast, small memory called cache, right near the processor, and then bigger, slower memory further away. The stuff the computer thinks it will need soon is kept in the fast cache for quick access. But the cache is small, so when it gets full and new stuff needs to come in, the computer has to decide what old stuff to kick out, to evict.
Okay, so how does it decide what to kick out?
Ideally, it would kick out the item it won't need again for the longest time. But predicting the future is hard, even for computers. So a really common and effective practical strategy is called least recently used, or LRU. The cache simply evicts the item that hasn't been accessed for the longest time. The assumption is if you haven't used it recently, you're less likely to need it again soon.
Least recently used.
Okay, so the stuff you have used recently stays.
Exactly. And now think about that messy pile of papers on your desk, or that filing system called the Noguchi filing system, where you just put every file you touch back on the far left or the front of the drawer or pile.
Ah, so the stuff you used most recently is always right at the front, easy to grab.
Precisely. It's a physical implementation of LRU. It's not just simple, it's algorithmically sound. That pile isn't necessarily chaos, it's a self-organizing cache. The most relevant documents naturally stay near the top. The least recently used ones sink to the bottom. So from this perspective, your messy desk might actually be peak efficiency. I am definitely going to tell people that. My desk isn't messy, it's an optimized LRU cache.
That's brilliant. And this applies to our brains, too.
It seems so. Think about memory. We all know Hermann Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve. Memories fade over time if we don't revisit them. We tend to think of forgetting as a flaw, right? A limitation of our brains. But some really interesting research by Anderson and Schooler suggests maybe it's not a flaw at all. Maybe it's a feature. Maybe our brains are optimally attuned to the statistical patterns of the world we live in.
Meaning?
Meaning the things we are most likely to need to remember because they are recent or frequent or relevant to our current context are precisely the things our memory system keeps most accessible. Forgetting less relevant stuff isn't a bug. It's like the brain's cache management, clearing out old data to make room for what's likely important now. It's efficient information retrieval.
So next time I forget someone's name 5 minutes after meeting them.
Laughs. You can just say your brain is being an optimal archivist, prioritizing. I like that. Okay, so maybe messiness has its virtues, algorithmically speaking. But what about problems that are just really, really hard? Like finding the absolute best route for a delivery truck hitting dozens of cities. The traveling salesman problem. You said computers can't even solve those perfectly sometimes. They're intractable.
Yeah, exactly. For problems like the traveling salesman, the number of possible routes explodes so fast as you add cities that even the fastest supercomputers couldn't check them all in, like the lifetime of the universe. They scale incredibly badly. So for these kinds of problems, we often need different approaches. We can't guarantee the perfect solution, so we aim for a good enough one found quickly. Two common techniques are relaxation and using randomness.
Okay, what's relaxation? Sounds nice.
It basically means you make the problem a bit easier by softening some of the strict rules or constraints. You find the optimal solution to the relaxed, slightly easier version of the problem, which hopefully gives you a good approximation for the original, harder problem.
And randomness. How does throwing dice help solve a complex problem?
It sounds weird, but sometimes introducing chance is incredibly effective. Think about Monte Carlo methods named after the casino, where you use lots of random sampling to estimate a result. It's used everywhere, from physics simulations to financial modeling, or specific randomized algorithms. For example, testing if a huge number is prime essential for cryptography often uses randomness to get a very high probability answer, much faster than a guaranteed deterministic method.
Okay, but how does randomness help find better solutions, not just faster ones?
Well, randomness can help you avoid getting stuck. Think about trying to find the highest peak in a foggy mountain range. You start walking uphill, hill climbing. But you might reach a small local peak, and every step from there leads downhill. You're stuck in a local maximum, even though the true highest peak is somewhere else.
Right, you can't see the bigger picture.
Exactly. So randomness can help. Techniques like simulated annealing, inspired by cooling metals, slowly involve occasionally taking a step downhill, randomly, or adding jitter small random movements. It seems counterproductive, maybe makes things slightly worse temporarily.
But it gives you a chance to get out of that local peak and potentially find a path towards the much higher global peak elsewhere.
Precisely. You escape the local trap by introducing a bit of chaos. Sometimes you have to accept getting slightly worse to eventually get much better.
That feels like it has huge implications for creativity, doesn't it? Like the idea that creativity needs some randomness. William James, Donald Campbell, they argued creativity is basically random idea generation plus filtering, keeping the good ones.
Yeah, generate variations, then select.
And those oblique strategies cards Brian Eno uses, where musicians draw a card with a weird instruction like use an old idea or change instrument rolls. That's pure injected randomness to break creative blocks. Even something simple like joining a CSA farm box scheme.
Community-supported agriculture.
Ah, you get whatever vegetables they happen to harvest that week. It forces randomness into your cooking. You have to figure out what to do with, I don't know, kohlrabi, which you'd never normally buy. It breaks your routine.
That's a great everyday example. It forces exploration. And algorithms aren't just in our heads or our computers. They're deeply embedded in our social interactions, too. Think game theory.
Ah, the prisoner's dilemma, where acting selfishly makes everyone worse off than if they'd cooperated.
The classic example. Individually rational choices leading to a collectively poor outcome. And scale that up, you get the tragedy of the commons, like overfishing or pollution leading to climate change. Each individual action seems small, but collectively it's disastrous. Or even that thing where people take less vacation if their coworkers don't, because they don't want to seem like slackers, leading to everyone being burnt out.
The tragedy of no vacation, I feel that one. But the flip side is mechanism design, right? We can actually change the rules of the game to get better results.
Yes, if everyone's taking too little vacation, maybe the company makes a certain amount compulsory. You change the incentives, the rules, to steer towards a better collective outcome. It's about designing the system itself.
Interesting. And what about things like fads or stock market bubbles? Is there an algorithmic view on that herd behavior?
Definitely. It relates to information cascades. Remember that story about an obscure Amazon textbook whose price algorithmically spiraled up to like $23 million?
Yeah, that was crazy. Two algorithms feeding off each other.
Exactly. But it mirrors how human social cascades work. People start ignoring their own private information or doubts and just start copying what everyone else seems to be doing. Public actions start to outweigh private signals. Someone buys a stock because it's going up, which makes it go up more, encouraging others to buy, even if their own analysis says it's overpriced. The lesson there is maybe be a bit wary when the crowd seems too certain about something, especially if it contradicts your own information. Don't just follow blindly.
Good advice. It makes you wonder, what if things we think are irrational, like human emotions, anger, love, the desire for revenge, what if they're actually evolution's way of solving complex game theory problems, like forcing us to commit to strategies that might seem illogical short-term but pay off long-term in social games?
That's a fascinating line of thought in evolutionary game theory, absolutely. Emotions as commitment devices.
So considering all this, maybe embracing a bit of randomness or really examining the rules of the game you're playing in groups or even in personal challenges, maybe that's the way forward.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot today in this deep dive. These hidden algorithms, they really are everywhere. Figuring out when to stop looking for that apartment or job, balancing trying new things versus sticking with favorites, realizing your messy desk might actually be efficient.
Understanding why we forget things, how to schedule tasks, maybe even how to predict things or when not to predict.
And navigating these complex social games we all play, algorithms are just constantly running in the background of life. Yeah, and it's striking how many things we struggle with. Inefficiencies, tough decisions, paradoxes are actually, in a sense, solved problems within computer science. The algorithms exist. The challenge isn't always finding the perfect, mathematically ideal solution because life is messy. It's often about finding a solution that's good enough, robust, efficient, given the constraints we actually face. Limited time, uncertainty, incomplete information, human psychology. It almost encourages a kind of, I don't know, computational stoicism.
Computational stoicism. I like that. Explain.
Well, focusing on the process, the algorithm you choose to follow, what you can control, rather than getting too hung up on the specific outcome, which often involves luck or factors beyond your control. Yeah. Run the best process you can.
That's a powerful takeaway. Focus on the algorithm, not just the result. So, for everyone listening, what does this all mean for you? If making good decisions is really about knowing when to stop, when to explore, how to sort or not sort, how to schedule, when to rely on chance, even when to think less, what problem, big or small, might you look at through an algorithmic lens this week? It certainly gives you a different way to think about things than your average news headline.